Okay, I had a bit of a brainwave there. So I finished up the last recording and I thought to myself, I'm after driving around Navan a little bit here. And I could do a kind of a tour of Navan, which I'm not going to do now. I am and I'm not. I have to go to fucking work basically. But on my way there, what I might do is giving a fucking speaking tour of Navan a go, you know, as I go. So I pulled in, I was up in the cash and carry getting a few bits for the business. And I pulled into what would have been a train station at one point. It's now the bus stop. That's at least what I would know what I was. I used to walk from St. Patrick's Classical School, St. Pat's down here after school to get the bus home, and so did everyone from the Tech and Mercy and Lorette or whatever else. But so that's where I'm parked now at the minute. So I'm going to plough on and just give this a lash. I'm breaking my rule again. Oh, in further closing from the previous episode, I mentioned the idea of breaking rules and all that jazz, and I thought of a bit of a soundbite as soon as I finished the recording, and the soundbite was, rules should be guidelines, not prisons. That needs a bit of work. But anyway, that's Clem's directly in front of me. Clem's is looking about as nice now as it ever did. To my right, which is probably out of frame, is the County Council offices. I'm on Railway Street here at the minute. Heap of different computer shops and t-shirt printing places on the left. Up on the right there is the Solstice, which it blocks the view of the library. Coming up to the roundabout here, there across the roundabout, the Railway Bar it's called. Now, it was always Smith's, the flat house. And that's owned by past guest and friend of the show, Bernard Smith. Well, his parents at least. To my left at this pedestrian crossing is St. Mercy's Convent. And a rather crude expression comes to mind from my teenage days, which is blue no can do, grey it's okay. Which is a little in-joke for anyone who ever went to school in an all-boys school in Navan. So, I'd usually go straight on here, but I'm going to swing it right. That's Paddy Fitzsimons is there kind of at, what is it, 1 o'clock, thereabouts. The Loft restaurant on the right, the Loft was a great spot. The chef in there used to be a friend of mine, still is a friend of mine, but the chef used to be a guy called Aidan Cosgrave. He now owns Room 8 on Watergate Street, which is by far the best place to get lunch. And I think he does dinner as well, I'm not sure. I've never been in the evening. But by far, by a country mile, the best place to get grub in Navan. Room 8, Watergate Street, shout out to Aidan and Co. Yeah, Paddy Fitzsimons was my watering hole for many's a year. Past guest and friend of the show, past guests rather, and friends of the show, Graham Mackin worked there, Dave Webster worked there, I think Tony Webster worked there. He's a future guest in the show. He said he'd come on, but he hasn't. He's one of those fuckers. So coming down to the dizzy bright lights of Trimgate Street, Dunn's is still there anyway, as is Ryan's to our right. The entrance to St. Mary's Church is on the right hand side. We're just passing the old town hall, I think it was. Jaxie Kiernan's going strong. The post office, otherwise known as McDonald's. Blockbuster, I think, used to be in there on the right hand side. That's gone a while. Cordner's Shoes is still there. Shout out to Brian Riley, a lad I went to school with. What else do we have? David's Butchers on the left hand side. Can't think of the McKeever lad's name who works in there. Aidan, shout out to Aidan, fellow Kilberry man like myself. Specsavers on the left hand side there, as you may or may not be able to see. What's the connection with the whole hearing aid thing and Specsavers? I've never fully understood that. Henry Loughran's is beside us, or Lockie's as the new fucking sign will let you know. AIB on the corner. The oldest news agents in the world just gone by us there on the right hand side, Tiernan's. This is the square, an infamously dangerous spot past 2 o'clock in the morning on Thursday, Friday, Saturday or Sunday night. That is the Bull, or the Bull's Arse as it's known. The Mead Chronicle, the Bank of Ireland. Room 8 is just up here on the left. Clem's, couldn't drive by Clem's without mentioning it. Clem's, fucking gas spot. There's literally no women's toilets in it, which I think is kind of cool. The Valley Cafe, you couldn't do a tour of Navan without mentioning the Valley Cafe. Walsh & Sons, the clock is still there, I've just driven by it. What else do we have here coming down on Watergate Street? Oh, the Lantern, the only place doing live music these days, really. Bands, let's say, there's places where lads have guitars and different fucking acoustic sessions or whatever else. The Can Tandoori restaurant on your left hand side, which I still don't think have ever stepped foot inside. Wouldn't be a fan of Indian food, or dirt spice as people may or may not call it. Boyle Sports on the right hand side there, never stepped foot in the place. Not a betting man really. I'd have a bet with someone for the crack, but wouldn't be one to frequent betting establishments, or bookies as we call them. Shout out to past guest and friend of the show, Daniel Gavin. Daniel brought me in to place my very first bet, I don't know, fucking 15 years ago, and I'll never let him live it down, because Gaz got me to sign or to write my bet on it and showed me exactly what to say and how to write it. Handed it into your one, and she just slid it across the table back to me and said, "You're going to have to do that again." Gaz goes, "Why?" And she goes, "Because it's upside down." Shout out to Gaz. On the hard right there, just going over the bridge at the bottom of Flower Hill, on the hard right would have been the laneway down to Embassy Snooker Hall. Embassy was a fucking great place to be. Flower Hill Lodge burnt to bits there not that long ago. That was a lovely pub too. We're going up Flower Hill, which is literally a derelict street. If you look left and right, you've got literally nothing but boarded up buildings. It's a dangerous street, if nothing else. I remember learning in school, what do they call it? Urban decay or some shit. Max on the left hand side, shout out to Benny Gavin. I worked there once upon a time until Kevin Mulvey stole my job, fucker. Shout out to Aidan Curtis, who now runs that filling station, by the way. Straight in front of me we have the Round O. Great name, you'll have to admit, the Round O. Situated on a roundabout, which isn't covered in pedestrian crossings, which most roundabouts in Navan these days for some reason are. And this is looking like it's going to be a long podcast, guys. It's looking like we're going to be here for some time because of... Can I do this in the video? No, I can't zoom out. I can't zoom in or out in this mode. Okay. I was going to zoom on the big L plate and that learner driver in front of me. But no, they're off. We're off. And we're indicating left. And would you believe it? We're stopped at that fucking roadworks. Welcome to Navan. Ah, good man, lads. Thank you kindly. Big wave. He had a fucking nothing but the widest of smiles for me. Big dirty ramp to fucking mess up your front bumper. So pulling away from Navan, we're going out what I suppose will be known as the Kingscourt Road or the Racecourse Road. It is also the road that I live out. On your right hand side, you're not going to be able to see it here from people, but people from Navan are going to know that St. Oliver's School is up there. Shout out to Maggie Trainer and all my past people who spent a bit of time with me in 7th class. Speaking of 7th class, shout out in particular to Aaron Brady. It's a story that I hate telling in the pub when we're talking about old school days, when there isn't somebody there with me who went to that same classroom, that 7th class. I hate telling the story about Aaron Brady because nobody believes me. Aaron Brady fell through the ceiling on top of the teacher on the last day of school in there. Shout out to Beef, Cormac O'Keefe, the first guest on the Off the Lead podcast. Beef was in that class with me. Shout out to Beef. And Tri-Town, famously coming up here on our left hand side, home of the infamous Tommy Tiernan and David Nolan. Shout out to David Nolan, brother-in-law of mine. Boris, a good mate of mine, lives here on the left hand side, brother-in-law. I've skipped loads, but hopefully the people who care are enjoying the little bit of a tour. Swinging a left up here would bring you to the swimming pool. The original swimming pool of Navan is long gone. That was out the back of Park Tolchin, the big football pitch in Navan. Well overdue a fucking upgrade. And now we are out of the town and this is Simonstown. So we have Simonstown pitch coming up to us on our left. Before we come to there, we have Mileage Tyres also on our left, an institution of the town. And Kingscourt Nobber road we're on now. And at 9.5 minutes, that's going to have to suffice as the end of this episode as I swiftly approach Proudstown Hill, which is a hell of a thing to climb on either a bike or by foot. And I'm going to keep things going as well because it wouldn't be a tour of Navan and out the Racecourse Road without at the very least passing by the racecourse. At the top of this hill, just before we come to the racecourse, there's a right hand turn that will bring you down what I've heard called Millionaires Road. full of lovely, nice houses. McGarry's there on the left, big kitchen man in Navan. Jack Foran's old house is here in the hard left. It's the last house on the left before you hit the racecourse. Before you actually hit the racecourse, that fencing is part of the racecourse, but it's the driving range. And there she blows, Navan Racecourse. It's a shame there isn't races on, because the odd time you can see horses crossing the road. And in here to the left, if I can tilt the camera slightly, no, I'm going to knock it off the windscreen. But you can actually see out onto the racecourse, out onto the track. And I've been lucky enough to see racehorses galloping along, driving by, which is kind of cool. And on that note, I'll chat to you soon.